Hi guys, so today I wanted to talk around the ego and the subconscious mind. So in this last month alone, I've sat through 2 workshops totaling at 8 days, which each one was about 10 to 11 hours a day. So in total in this last month, I've sat through between about 80 and 90 hours of teachings from a guy called Ryan Pinnock, who specialises specifically in the unconscious mind and the ego. Now obviously I wrote reels and reels of notes. I'm not going to be able to share them all in this small video, but I just wanted to share some highlights and possibly correct some misconceptions about what the ego actually is. Now normally when we say somebody has a big ego, we're normally referring to somebody that would maybe be seen as a bit of a jerk, a bit of a jackass, a bit cocky, busting in arrogance or overdose of confidence. But actually it's something on the opposite end of the scale of that. If you imagine an ego being like an iceberg, those behaviours that you're identifying is typically the tip of the iceberg. If you go down beneath the water level, there's a whole heap of other things that are going on. Those other things that are going on, the ego and those behaviours that you're seeing are protecting the things underneath that are way more painful. Now, a classic example of this is a book that I'm reading at the moment called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. If you haven't read it, definitely look it up. Now, he doesn't actually refer to the ego in the book, but the way that he describes his earlier years and his behaviour and the way that he held himself and the way that he was with other people, it was very easy for people to judge him as very arrogant and very indifferent and with a massive ego. But in the book, he opens up very vulnerably and very openly, and he basically describes that those behaviours were absolutely to protect himself and other people for knowing from what was going on underneath from such a troubled childhood. Now, the example with David Goggins is an extreme case, and I accept that, but the principle remains the same. So the way that Ryan described it in the workshops I thought was brilliant. Imagine having an injury on your arm that cut the skin. The pain that you get from the injury is one thing that you're trying to protect yourself from feeling again, but your ego becomes like the scar tissue that wraps around it to protect it from feeling that pain once again. Let me give you a couple of examples to put that into context. So when the ego feels challenged, it will show up with different emotions. Maybe it's fear, could be anger, defensiveness, even withdrawal. And this shows up in many ways. When you're feeling fear, it will then come into your cognitive brain. It will tell you a story. For example, everybody's going to laugh at you. And then it will give you an instruction, as in, do not do this thing. Therefore, it's protecting you. Maybe if somebody criticizes you, your ego is then challenged. It comes out in anger. The anger is, this person thinks that I'm not good enough, and then the instruction might be to fight back and insult them back. Where I often see it, and see it so commonly, is when two people start bickering, particularly couples. I once knew of a couple that used to fight over meaningless things, such as how you squeeze the toothpaste tube. And they got so latched into the belief that their arguments were about the toothpaste tube, they failed to realise that what was really going on was that egos were going head to head. One person, and both of them in fact, were thinking, I can't be wrong. I have to be right. I do not want to be the underdog. That's the ego talking. It's nothing to do with the toothpaste tubes. Now, just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that it's realistic that we all walk around being completely unreactive. Unless you've been meditating for 12 hours a day for the last 20 years, you will have an ego. It's inevitable because you're human. Everybody watching this video will have an ego, including myself. However, the rule of thumb is the bigger the ego, the bigger the insecurity. If you found this helpful, please like it or share it. But other than that, have a great week. Cheers.